welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian, Pace reporting live here in downtown Brooklyn. Bassist, composer, and educator Gregg August has put together a courageous suite of music entitled Dialogues on Race Volume 1. And it's a commission from the Jazz Gallery and the Jerome Foundation, in which it's an extended piece for 12 members of a large jazz ensemble, as well as 3 vocalists featuring strings and a narrator. Now, in this piece, he incorporates all the rudiments of Black American music from jazz, as well as incorporates some of our most important poet laureates, including the great Langston Hughes, as well as Maya Angelou. Also, you'll hear in this suite as well words from the late Mamie Til, mother of Emmett Till. Tonight, he's performing this suite for the 4th time at the Soapbox Gallery here in Brooklyn. And I had a chance to sit down and break bread with him to reflect on this piece and why he decided to write this and why it's relevant now, and how he decided to take this music to make sure that people can understand how this plays in history moving forward. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Mr. Gregg August performing selections of his current suite, Dialogues on Race Volume 1, performed live at the Soapbox Gallery here in Brooklyn on the Pace Report.
We made you laugh.
you're bringing a whole dissection of American history and race by way of American black music, as well as literary, as well as the political, as well as the socioeconomic issues that are happening here in this country.
Yes. I'm not sure where to start, but let me thank you first, Brian, for letting me have a platform to talk about the record, especially in this sort of informal context. Yes, I can tell you where the records, um, where it began. The idea of putting this thing together started over 10 years ago, given the opportunity to compose a large scale of work because of a jazz gallery commission. A lot of things were going through my mind at the time concerning the country. I think we were in the heat of the Obama campaign, and everything on the news was, race related, and a lot of things were sort of jumping out that I wasn't used to seeing. I guess dog whistles maybe is a term that we could use. But in any event, I had, of course, I play with all kinds of musicians from everywhere, and the different stuff that I play. I play a lot of classical music, I play a lot of jazz, I play Latin, so people are from everywhere. And, but the thing I was always noticing was there was very little conversation about race, amongst ourselves. It's one thing, I always like to say it this way, or I don't like to say it, but this is one way I would point it out. Um, Having lived overseas in France, I met a lot of French African people, and I could speak to them about sort of American race issues, or some of the Latin people I know from Cuba, so black Cubans, and I could speak to them about American race issues. But I always found it really awkward and difficult to have that conversation with my black American friends, white American and black American, and it was always kind of stumbling in the beginning. I mean, and then we got through it. And it was just a matter of persistence, and I was lucky because these guys are my family, playing music together for years, and you have that trust with each other, where if things get a little awkward, you can guide each other through it. And I mean, it's really no big deal um, to have pursued those conversations. But I just those were frustrations that I was having. And so when I had the chance to write a piece, I had to figure out a way to incorporate this sort of race issue that we live with, no matter what you look like in this country. But it's something we inherit, and I just was looking for some type of understanding, and through research, um, reading a lot poems and whatnot, I figured I could maybe come up with a concept of for this lengthy piece, and that was the initial thing. And then like I talked about this a lot in the last few weeks, and then I saw this documentary on Emmett Till by Keith Beauchamp, and it's called The Untold Story of Emmett Lewis Till. And I had known about Emmett Till, but I didn't know as much as I learned in this film. And the particular thing that struck me was the scene with Mamie Till Mobley describing seeing him for the first time in the casket, and going through like detail by detail, vivid, gory detail, but with this controlled, like almost emotionless, like distanced from it, the way she told it, like stoic, and it was more powerful as a result, and it stuck with me. And I was like, wow, that scene, and there must be a way to incorporate that into this piece somehow. So what we would do to kind of jump ahead, once I had written the piece, I would take that clip from the film, and I would play it. We wouldn't play anything, the band. It was just the audio of her talking, describing what I said, his gruesome body, and then we would play one of the tunes from the record, from the piece called "Your Only Child," So I had thought, if I ever record this piece, I'm going to want to figure out a way to utilize that clip of her talking. So fast forward 10 years, we made the record, and I contacted the director of the film, Keith Beauchamp, and I mean, Facebook, it was, he didn't know me. We weren't even friends on Facebook. You know, I just texted him pretty much what I just told you, telling him I was very moved by the scene in the movie, and I would like to use part of it if you're willing to, you know, let me, because it had soundtrack. So of course I wanted to be on the up and up and not just take his stuff, copyright and all that thing, all that stuff. But also because it had soundtrack. So I was wondering if you would give me the raw footage. And I tell you, I just looked at the text the other day, in fact. So this was from a year ago when I texted him, August of 2019, and he texted me back the same day. I mean, he didn't know me at all. I sent him a video that we had made from the record, so maybe from that he was able to see that I was, you know, pretty serious about what I was doing, and he offered me whatever I wanted, and you know, so we struck up this friendship as a result. But in any event, yes. So we took that audio from his film, and we improvised to it. So the actual record was made about 6 months before I called Keith. What I did on the record date was I played the audio, so it had the track with the soundtrack in there. I mean, I played it for the bass clarinet player, Ken Thompson, and Marcus Rojas, the tuba player, because I just wanted it to be sort of low, and we improvised to it. We listened to it, and then we did 3 takes, improvisation, and then later on I chose which one worked best, got Keith's footage, and then I manipulated it so I could have, I don't know, I just put it all together, and we put Mamie Til on the left side and on the right side, so she's kind of talking over herself with a lot of reverb, and it's haunting, you know, and I've had a lot of people talk about it, and it's not really a jazz piece. I mean, in the sense that it's not grooving, it doesn't have anything that one would think jazz has. It's improvisation, but it's like more like a field recording, you know, and yeah, so that's how I got connected with Keith. I mean, that's sort of, and that's how the record sort of formed. Those 2 elements, the frustration with not being able to talk to my friends openly, getting through the frustration, and then from there also this connection with Keith Beauchamp and Emmett Till, and there's some other aspects to it, but that's the basic beginning of the piece.
I mean, your music, like and you know, you have Maya Angelou, you have James Baldwin, you have
No,
Mamie
actually I don't. I have Langston Hughes.
Langston Hughes, right? Langston Hughes. But the thing is that you've taken American roots music, Black American music, and also literary figures, and you've incorporated this into a very important suite to address what we're dealing with in the now. And it goes back to what I said earlier about cancel culture, this whole thing with Trump,
Right.
how he doesn't want to erase and eradicate how history has lied to the American
Right.
people and how it's been presented.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Okay, so the record, you mentioned those poets, and there are Hispanic poets, there are white poets. I'm a white guy, which we should talk about. But the overall point of the record, or the theme of the record, is that we're dealing with the issue from different perspectives. So there's a poem on there by Carolyn Kaiser called "I Sang in the Sun," and she's a Caucasian lady, and like the opening lyric is "I sang in the sun in my white oasis." So she's trying to say that like it's easy for me to say, to sort of be involved with activism, so to speak, or whatever, or being sympathetic or empathetic with what's happening for people of color, because I'm white. You know what I'm saying? So, but that poem is strong, and there's another poem in there that by Francisco Alarcón, a Chicano poet, that it's called "Letter to America," and we actually have a narrator on that, Wayne Smith, and that's about immigrants and people that have been disenfranchised since the beginning when they come here, in other words, and how they're sort of just downtrodden and whatnot. So there's a lot of different poems because of the different perspectives I wanted to sort of inspect, so to speak. Yeah, the Emmett Till thing runs throughout because I think that what happened to him and what his mother did, that's really like that kind of puts it all like in a nutshell. What happened to him.
George Floyd really was really this generation's 2020's version of what Emmett Till went through in 1954.
The thing is, it's the vivid graphicness of it, because we saw Emmett Till's body in the photos. His mother endured that for the rest of her life. She had to look at those photos, think about those photos, and she recited that description of him. I mean, I've seen it several places since I saw the movie. And then George Floyd's the same thing. We saw him, for 8 minutes, whatever it was, be slowly murdered. So there's no nuance necessary. There's nothing you can say. How can you dispute anything that's happening? You're seeing it. So there's the similarity right there. I think one of them.
And not only that, Mamie Till, when she was asked about presenting the photographs to the world, she said that she wanted the world to see what happened to her son.
See, yeah, so now we're getting into something else, because I have, had some people, mostly white people, tell me that I needed to be careful covering this topic, or at least the publicity people that were helping me out, they were getting some, not resistance, that's the wrong word. It's just like, well, this isn't really the time for a white guy to be bringing up his art about race. And
when is it?
Well,
when is it ever gonna be? I mean, see, that's the problem I'm having with this, Greg. Because if people can't articulate and handle the truth, I think there's other countries you can live in, or you can just tune this out. But this is happening in the now.
Well, I mean, this resistance that we faced. Resistance. That's a strong word.
Well, no, it is resistance.
Yeah, it was resistance. But some people, they vividly said, no, we will not cover this record. We won't even playlist it because we don't like white musicians, co-opting black pain. That's what a guy told me. And I'm like, cool, whatever. But it just made me think more and dig more deeply into this topic. And I understand where they're coming from, man. And it's a sensitive thing. I'm not, but I would also say this: at every turn when these reactions would come up from these people, from these writers, or from friends even, they were white people. Again, I tell you that. And I would call up my friends. I would call Keith. I would call all kinds of friends. White friends, black friends, Hispanic friends, women. It didn't matter. I would just do what we're doing now. We'd dialogue. Just talk. Get it out. Okay, maybe I'm not understanding that point, so maybe you could guide me through. So there was a real positive thing that came as a result. I mean, if this record had come out when it was supposed to, which was in March, before everything hit the streets with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and people's attention becoming really focused on race. If it had come up before then, I wouldn't have had the same, like, you know,
Magnitude that it would have.
well, also I wouldn't have had to deal with maybe that resistance. It would have been, oh yeah, okay, it's a cool record. Let's just talk about it. But this was like, okay, we got to be careful because he's this whole thing of cultural appropriations, and it's cool, man. I mean, I'm saying for myself, I can deal with that. I want to be able to understand it better, and every conversation I've had about that specific thing, cultural appropriations, the people, most of my black friends have said, no, man, we need everybody all hands on deck here. So, and this thing that happened with the artist Dana Schutz, she had a painting in the Whitney Museum called The Casket, I think, and it was a grotesque depiction of Emmett Till's body. So, like, obviously the photo is grotesque to begin with, and she had a distorted, grotesque rendition of that, and it offended a lot of people, like the black art intelligentsia, like hit the, and that was something I was paying attention to. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to probably, be able to answer these questions about like my piece and how, how a guy that looks like me, is accepted or not. I don't want to say accepted, just that it's not offensive. I don't want to offend. I can't speak for her, but I'm sure she didn't either. But, it's sensitivity and but I had already written the piece long before she had her incident. I put it together in 2008, 2009. So it was, again, man, this is all about me trying to educate myself and have conversations with friends, conversations that we wouldn't have had. I wouldn't have had this conversation with you 10 years ago. We just wouldn't have been cool. Wouldn't have been easy. We would have just like blown it off and just got, so that's kind of the whole premise, is me trying to figure out my shit.
But you know what, Greg? And I want to put this out there too. Everybody, a few viewers out here don't know, Greg is a member of J.D. Allen's trio.
Right.
And J.D. was the one who called me about this project that you were doing. He said, hey, man, you got to reach out. And we connected. And when you told me about this project, I said, yeah, of course we're going to cover this, because this is part of, again, it goes back to American black music, black American music. And what you did is you took a crux of some of our influential jazz musicians. JD's is on the record. Tell everybody out here who's on this record, who contributed to this, because this is not just black musicians. You've got a whole rainbow coalition of musicians, jazz musicians on this album.
Yeah, well, it was asked to me if I chose the musicians I chose for that reason, because of the way people looked, because there's a mix, and I'm like, it never even occurred to me. I chose the guys that I knew could do two things. They could endure all the crap I was about to put on the paper and like learn it, you have to have studious people, and that they could also improvise. So that's, I needed really special musicians. In the end, I didn't even look at what people looked like, at what they were, it was a kind of a funny question to get, but so I have J.D. Allen, I have John Ellis, plays soprano, I have Bruce Williams on alto, John Bailey plays trumpet, Luis Perdomo, Donald Edwards, Mauricio Herrera plays percussion, a Cuban guy. I have Ken Thompson, who plays bass clarinet, and I have Marcus Rojas, plays tuba, and Rafi Maciel plays trombone. And then I have three different singers. I have Frank Lacey. I have a young guy I just met called Forrest Van Dyke. He sings one track. And then a girl named Shelley Washington, who sings the Emmett Till track. She's interesting because she's actually a composer and a baritone sax player, and we were at a music festival together, and I found out that she could sing, and she sang the track, and I liked the way she sang it because it was kind of stoic, almost like Mamie, so anyway, and then I have a whole bunch of strings on one of the tracks. I think I have 7, so there's like 22 people. And I guess everybody's from everywhere, but it was about the music. That's why I chose them.
music unfold
Hmm.
at the Soapbox Gallery, I'm listening to Frank Lacey,
Right.
and I'm like, wow, there's comparisons to him and Charles Mingus, because Mingus was this authoritarian when
Yeah.
he did sing or when he spoke in his music, and he's kind of like bringing that whole attention, that brute force to your composition.
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed to be able to get him to do this. He wasn't the original singer 10 years ago, it was Miles Griffith.
Oh wow.
And when we were about to record this, I couldn't track Miles down, and I was like, who am I going to get? Because it's really a unique type of tune. He sings two tunes, but the one about Mamie Till and Emmett Till called Your Only Child, the jazz version, I have a couple versions. And I talked to my friend Earl McIntyre, whose wife Renee is a singer. I said, man, who could sing this? I played him the recording from 10 years ago, and they said, Roots. He's the only guy I know who can do that. And they had played together for years in the Mingus band. Yeah, man, and he learned that crazy melody, and like, we've only done it twice. You have to realize this. So 2019, we did the recording, okay? February 2019. We rehearsed at my crib, and he learned it, and then we did it again in January of this year at the Jazz Fest, Winterfest. So we revisited it again, the band and him, and he retained it, and then this time. So that's like, what, 3 times in the span of almost 2 years, not having done anything in between with it. And he remembers it. It's like, damn. And yeah, he brings the vibe, and I mean, yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky, because if he couldn't make the gig, I don't know what I would do.
Moving forward with this, we're going into 2021, and
Yep.
the vaccine is looking like it's about to come out here at the end of the year, and it seems like now a lot of the jazz clubs here in New York are reopening. Everything is kind of going back to normal. But at the same time, we're getting this backlash of COVID cases. Do you think that as a composer and where you stand right now, next year is going to be a better year for you to present this whole entire suite to music festivals as well as promoters?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope. I mean, I'm not even thinking about this project or myself really. I'm thinking about everybody. What's going on here? I mean, musician or not, we're just trying to get through like money and all this other stuff. Everybody's struggling, no matter what you do for a living. And having said that, yeah, and then my musician friends, we're all trying to keep it together, try to stay inspired. Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the people that are sick, and we're hearing about a lot of friends that are sick. I know a guy who passed away back in the spring, and this shit is creeping up now, Thanksgiving, and we know people that have underlying health issues. A lot of people of color that live, in like funky areas with, pollution and all this other stuff that's gone back for generations. That's why it's taken them. Yeah, the music, but all that is important, but it's not that important, really, at this point.
You're right. It's about survival and safety
yeah,
at this
man,
stage.
we're just trying to get through. We're just trying to get through and like keep it together, keep people safe, people alive, healthy, and then, of course, the economic thing. And yeah, music will be there. Hopefully all my friends won't have left. you know. So I mean, that's kind of the priorities I'm thinking about. My dad is kind of a unhealthy person, so trying to figure out if it's smart to go see him on Thursday. Being tested. I'm lucky I teach. I teach at a couple universities where they make us get tested. So I've been tested 12 times since September. But my lady, she's no longer employed, and she just waited 4 hours on the line with my sister to get tested, just to be sure that we could just be in the same room as my mom and my dad. I mean, it's. I think it's so beyond comprehension what we're going through, man. It's existential, crisis, and then we have the whole political element that's contributing to the madness.
The minutia.
It's crazy, man. There's going to be a lot of great art that comes out as a result of this period, though.
Right.
So maybe that's a better answer to your question.
How how have you been able to survive during all this, and what have you learned through this whole entire COVID pandemic?
Well, how I've survived, I've been fortunate to have gotten these adjunct teaching jobs. At NYU, I teach classical bass, and at Williams College in Massachusetts, I teach jazz bass. Where Avery Sharp just retired, so I took his place. And it's a little change. It helps me, pay my bills. But what I haven't experienced is like also had some online teaching. Some of the students are like on the West Coast, but so not just the online, but even the in-person students. It's like I realize how important it is for them, the students, that I show up present. Like they're really going through it. I mean, I'm an older guy, a professional, but these are kids that are launching their lives into a life of music. They thought, and like, what are they doing? They're spending all this money to go to these schools, and I can tell they're craving like some type of just presence from me. So, and it's been good. It's actually been a positive thing, because I've discovered that I actually can be there more than I thought I could before. Maybe because I have more time. I'm not running around with the bass playing gigs. But there's that need, and so there's been a silver lining, like a spiritual silver lining, like connecting with the students. And then my friends, man, I call my friends more than I used to. We used to text. I'll call them up, we'll talk for an hour, and we're all like just saying the same stuff we're saying now, like what are we going to do? But, right. It's once we get on the other side, man, I think it's going to burst wide open. We're going to create some incredible stuff, man. Live music means more now than it did before, and they talked about that in the New York Times. I don't know if you saw that article, but cats playing jazz in all the parks and stuff. But that's going to really, I think, stand out. People are sick of live streams. I think they want to be next to each other in the audience, definitely playing. Last week I was lucky. That was the first gig, since January with my thing, and it took a lot of work to just get the club, the gallery to, everyone settle into the fact that we were going to be blowing air, 7 horns throughout the room, in a 1,000 square foot space. It's not probably the wisest decision, but we
Jimmy really went above and beyond for this.
He did, man. He was insistent. I said, I can bring in like a sextet. He says, no, bring them all. I'm like, how are we going to afford that? It just doesn't matter. Bring them all. We want the full impact of that sound. And excuse me, and I I was dealing with just trying to keep it all together, trying to remember what it's like to be on a gig of your own. Like, can I even do this? Because I haven't done it in 10 months. That's the first thing. And then all the organizing and schedules, and then and preparing for the talk that we had after the concert. I had a lot on my mind, but after it was all over, I watched the thing. I was like, okay, we did it. We pulled it off. And I think it was like some spiritual level for everyone to play together, even though it was risky. Something about vibrations, man, and sound, and being in the middle of it, it was really loud, right? It was ringing, but I don't know, man. I'm glad we did it. If it had been this week, we probably wouldn't have done it. We would have canceled because the numbers are going so crazy. Right. But I was really glad we did that, and I could see, like, man, as soon as we get through this vaccine thing, and people can get it, and we all get back on track, it's going to be some amazing music, amazing art produced, I think.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here in downtown Brooklyn. I'd like to personally congratulate and thank the talented Gregg August for his time. Make sure you go out and support his brand new recording, Dialogues in Race Volume 1, which is now available on iTunes, Amazon.com, as well as Apple Music. Also, I'd like to personally congratulate and thank the talented Mr. Jimmy Greenfield for his hospitality at the Soapbox Gallery here in Brooklyn. For more information, for upcoming shows and streaming content, please visit him online at soapboxgallery.org. Also, people, like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as visit my website, The Pace Report, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.